Welcome to this video. Today we gonna talk about Jack the Ripper. Make sure you subscribe and like. Let's get started. Introduction. The infamous Jack the Ripper. In the fall of 1888, London was gripped by a series of horrific murders that would go down in history as one of the most infamous unsolved mysteries in criminal history. Known as Jack the Ripper, this unidentified serial killer brutally murdered at least 5 women in the East End of London. Despite numerous investigations, theories, and suspects, the true identity of Jack the Ripper remains a mystery to this day. In this video, we'll dive deep into the terrifying story of these murders, the hunt for the killer, and the many theories that have arisen over the years. Setting the scene: Victorian London and the Whitechapel district. To understand the story of Jack the Ripper, we first need to know a bit about the London of 1888. The city was a bustling metropolis, with a population of over 6 million people, many of whom lived in extreme poverty. The Whitechapel district, where the murders took place, was a notoriously poor and overcrowded area, rife with crime and suffering. With cramped, unsanitary living conditions, Whitechapel was home to many of London's poorest residents, including prostitutes, who became the target of the Ripper's attacks. The first victim, Mary Ann Nichols. The story of Jack the Ripper begins on August 31, 1888, with the murder of Mary Ann Nichols. Mary, a 43-year-old prostitute, was found dead in Bucks Row, now Durward Street, in Whitechapel. Her throat had been slashed, and her abdomen had been mutilated. The violence of the crime shocked the public, but it was only the beginning of a terrifying series of murders. The police had few clues to go on, and the murder seemed isolated at first. However, just a few weeks later, another woman was found dead under eerily similar circumstances. The second victim, Annie Chapman. On September 8, 1888, Annie Chapman, a 47-year-old prostitute, was found murdered in the backyard of 29 Hanbury Street in Whitechapel. Like Mary Ann Nichols, her throat had been slashed, and her body was gruesomely mutilated. The killer had removed her intestines, leading to speculation about the motivations behind the crime. This second murder escalated the panic in London, and the police began to recognize a pattern. A serial killer was on the loose. Witnesses reported seeing a man with Annie Chapman just before her murder, but no one was able to provide a solid description of the suspect, and the investigation stalled. The third victim, Elizabeth Stride. On September 30, 1888, Jack the Ripper claimed his third victim, Elizabeth Stride. Stride, 44 years old, was found in Dutfield's yard, off Berner Street, now Enriquez Street. Her throat had been slashed, but unlike the previous victims, there were no signs of mutilation to her body. Some believe that the killer was interrupted before he could perform further mutilations, and it is thought that Stride's murder was a failed attempt to match the gruesome pattern of the other killings. It was on the same night that the Ripper claimed a fourth victim. The fourth victim, Catherine Eddowes. Just an hour after Elizabeth Stride's body was discovered, Catherine Eddowes, a 46-year-old woman, was found murdered in Mitre Square. Unlike Stride, Eddowes' body showed the usual gruesome signs of the Ripper's work. Her throat had been slashed, and her abdomen had been mutilated. Her face was also disfigured, and part of her kidney was missing. What made this murder even more shocking was the discovery of a piece of leather apron found at the crime scene, which led to the idea that the killer may have been familiar with butchery or surgery. The fifth victim, Mary Jane Kelly. The final victim of Jack the Ripper was Mary Jane Kelly, a 25-year-old prostitute, who was found on November 9, 1888, in her room at 13 Miller's Court, Whitechapel. Her murder was by far the most gruesome. Her body was extensively mutilated, and the killer had removed organs in a manner that suggested a level of surgical knowledge. The brutality of Mary Kelly's murder is often regarded as the Ripper's most vicious crime. By this time, the Ripper's spree had lasted for just over 2 months, leaving behind a trail of death and terror. After Mary Kelly's murder, the killings abruptly stopped, leading many to believe that the killer either died, moved away, or was apprehended under another identity. The investigation and public reaction. The The murders sparked widespread fear across London and captured the attention of the public and the media. The police, led by Commissioner Sir Charles Warren, were under intense pressure to find the killer. They had little to go on, with only the victims' bodies and a few cryptic letters sent to the press. One of the most famous pieces of evidence in the case is the "Dear Boss" letter, sent to the Central News Agency in London. The letter, purportedly written by the killer, was signed Jack the Ripper, and claimed responsibility for the murders. While many experts believe the letter was a hoax, others think it might have been written by the killer himself. In addition to the "Dear Boss" letter, other letters were sent to the press, including one with a piece of a victim's apron, but none of these led to a breakthrough in the case. The suspects. Who was Jack the Ripper? Over the years, many theories have been put forward about the identity of Jack the Ripper. The police at the time had several suspects, but none were definitively proven to be the killer. Some of the most widely discussed suspects include 1. Aaron Kosminski, a Jewish barber from Poland. Kosminski was one of the primary suspects of the time. He was known to have a mental illness and was believed to have been violent toward women. In recent years, DNA evidence has been cited to suggest that he may have been the Ripper, but this theory remains highly controversial. 2. Montague John Druitt, a barrister and teacher. Druitt was suggested as a suspect after his death, when it was revealed that he had been struggling with his mental health. His death by drowning in the Thames soon after the last murder led some to speculate that he may have been Jack the Ripper. 3. The Royal Conspiracy. Some theorists have proposed that Jack the Ripper was a member of the British royal family, possibly Prince Albert Victor, the grandson of Queen Victoria. This theory has been widely debunked, but it remains a popular subject in conspiracy circles. 4. Walter Sickert, a famous British painter. Sickert has been linked to the Ripper murders by some researchers. This theory gained traction in the 1990s after author Patricia Cornwell published a book claiming Sickert's involvement, though the evidence is tenuous at best. Despite many suspects and theories, the true identity of Jack the Ripper has never been conclusively established. The legacy of Jack the Ripper. The mystery of Jack the Ripper continues to fascinate people around the world. Over the years, books, documentaries, and films have been created about the murders and the search for the killer. The case remains one of the most enduring criminal mysteries in history. The name, Jack the Ripper, has become synonymous with terror and remains a part of popular culture, often used to evoke the image of a sadistic, unknown murderer. The case has also influenced law enforcement and criminal investigations, and it continues to be studied as a tragic chapter in the history of criminal psychology. Conclusion: an unsolved mystery. Despite numerous theories, investigations, and suspects, the identity of Jack the Ripper remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in criminal history. The brutality of the murders, the cryptic letters, and the lack of concrete evidence have kept the mystery alive for over 130 years. While we may never know who Jack the Ripper was, the terror he spread through Victorian London will never be forgotten. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more investigations into some of the most chilling mysteries of our time. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into real-life crime stories. What do you think of this case? Was justice served, or did it fail those who needed it most? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And I see you in the next video.